Welcome to the Home Workers Network, the show that is all about creating an engaged home workers community that shares best practice and leadership so that together we can grow and develop both ourselves and our businesses. My name's Paul Deach and I'm with Marcus Boswell. Now, Marcus normally does our top tech tip segment, but he's joining us for the whole show, I'm hoping, today, because Phil, one of our regular hosts, can't be with us today because he's at a client meeting. He said he will try and join us a little bit later on, but there's a good chance he won't be able to. And Julian is currently on a conference call, but he'll be joining us in just a moment. So thanks for jumping in the seat, Marcus. Really appreciate it. How are you doing? All right?
I am good, thank you. Challenged as ever on the clock.
Yeah.
This is an interesting show for me.
I know the feeling. Now, today we're going to be talking about, are you really your own boss? Now, when you work from home, most people, I would suggest, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Marcus, most people, the first thing you think when you say you work from home, people think you're your own boss. Now, in many cases, that's correct. Like myself, I'm based from home, although I do spend most of my time out in the field. I am based from home and it is my own business. So I suppose by default, you could say I am my own boss, but I have a view on that because I'm not at all. You, however, on the other end of the scale, work for a company, a very large company for that matter.
Okay.
And in my view, a very forward thinking company because they allow you to work from home and base yourself from home rather than an office. Isn't that right?
It is very true. And I've, I guess for the last 10 years, really, across all of the types of roles that I've done, I've been fortunate, if you want to call it that, enough to be a remote worker. For me, the truth is it's now a way of life. I can't imagine being locked into an office environment. I don't think it suits my personality and the way in which I prefer to work. I mean, as you and many of the audience will know, those of you who work from home, you have a very varied amount of hours in which you are the most productive. And I think that you tend to learn when you work the way we do about when that is, whether you're a morning person or whether you work into the evening. So I think that's definitely an important thing to take on board.
Absolutely. And, the thing is we got quite a growing audience here now. And I suspect that most people in the audience either work from home, whether it be all the time or even if it's just once a month. And if you have any views about working from home and who really is your boss, whether it be you or someone you work for or whatever, feel free to ask any questions. Just type in the comments there /Q and then your question. Marcus, would you just put in a test there so people can see how that works? There you go. And then we can then put that in the tile there so that people can see it. Answer question. There you go. Lovely. Howdy, folks. All right. Fantastic. So if you have a question, /Q and then your question, and then we can get that addressed. Now, so we had a pre-show about, or rather a pre-show meeting about this subject to sort of discuss the concept and all the rest of it. And there was quite an interesting debate going on about who really is the boss. Okay, even if you're your own boss, because my view is this. Okay, I might not have a physical boss. I might not have somebody telling me what to do and when I need to do it. But I do have a boss, and they're my clients. My clients are my bosses. Okay, so you could say I have more than one boss, because I am answerable to them. Because at the end of the day, if I don't deliver what I'm supposed to deliver, I'm going to get sacked. It's really that simple. I disagree. Clients are not bosses, Mark says. That's Mark, would you like to come in? Come in and explain that. I'd love to hear what your views are on that. There's an open seat there. Jump in.
Now we're cooking.
Now we're kicking. There he comes. Now, Hi, Mark. Just let me introduce you first, Mark. Now, Mark, a good friend of mine, I would say, on Blab. He and I have had long discussions on Blab. We met on Blab. Mark is from Essex in the United Kingdom, but actually currently lives in Tel Aviv in Israel. Go ahead, Mark.
It's definitely not an easy one. I think there are some big differences between clients and bosses, and for that reason, they're not the same. They have some similarities for sure, but there are definitely distinct differences. And at the end of the day, I think if you're running a successful business, you are successfully choosing who you work with, right? And for me, my business got a lot better the minute I decided not to work with people that I didn't want to work with. Meaning it wasn't about the money, and it wasn't about, oh no, I might get fired. And for me, that massively changed the way, I'm not a freelancer. I'm not working by myself. I have a digital marketing company. We have a team, we have staff. And yeah, I don't feel like I have bosses. I have people that I respect and that I try and do great work for. But in the type of work that I work in, they are looking to me for leadership, right? They are looking for me for direction. And at the end of the day, I don't have to do everything that they say. And I am actually the sort of marketer who believes most of the time what they have to say isn't correct. Not always. And I have to be quite strong with that. And for that reason, they're not my bosses. They could decide to not use my services anymore, for sure. I'm not sure that makes them my boss.
No, I agree to a certain extent. And welcome, Rachel. I'll come to you in just a second. I agree to a certain extent. And I've always said that I don't share the common misconception that the customer is always right, because they're not. Okay.
Sometimes,
however,
know what they don't know, right?
Absolutely. But the other thing is that I work on my own. I don't have a team around me. That might change very soon, but I don't have a team around me. I am on my own. Okay. And maybe it's a metaphorical thing. I don't know, but I feel I am answerable to my customers. And I treat them as bosses. In fact, often when I go into a business, I was with one yesterday. They actually now, I've been with them now for about a year and a half. They actually consider me, even though I'm a consultant, a part of the team.
Right.
When I go in there. But at the end of the day, the chief executive officer of that company is the one I report to. When I'm there for the 1 or half a day a week. So while they're not a physical boss, they can't hand me a P45. They can say to me, do you know what, Paul? We don't think you're performing that well. We don't think we're getting value for money. Therefore, we're going to part company. So you could say in some respects, I'm getting the sack. What would you say to that, Rachel?
I really do agree with Mark. Like yourself, I work on my own. I have got a team of people that work with me to deliver what I deliver. But very recently, there have been clients that I've sacked simply because I don't agree with what they're asking me to do. I'm the expert in what I do for them, and if they're asking me to do something and I disagree with it, and then they want me still to do it, then I obviously can't work with them. So, I agree.
I agree with you there to a degree. I've sacked clients as well. A lot of the time, it's either because they are not very good payers, they don't pay on time, and because I'm a one-man band, I just do not have time to be chasing them for payment.
Yeah.
Or on other occasions, it can just be that actually, more often than not, what it is that they start off well. Being a social media consultant, they start off that they want to do it, and I've said to them from day one, social media is for life, not just at Christmas. You've got to be dedicated to it and all the rest of it. And they start off well, but then they go off the boil, so to speak. And no matter what I do, I just can't, get them to be consistent. And from that point of view, I just think, well, it's better for my own credibility and theirs, not just to take their money for the sake of it. Just say, look, this isn't working for you. Let's leave it at that. So although I'm not really sacking them, I'm just saying, look, we better part company. But no, I understand your point. Very, very, very good point. Did you want to add something else to that, Mark?
I did. I can't 100% remember right now, but reading the words of the title, "Are You Really Your Own Boss?" I do think there are some good things you can take from maybe treating your clients a bit like your boss, right? Like, you do need people to hold you accountable to things, right? It's like, or you need to set up processes that make you accountable to things, right? Because it's easy to sit at home and be by yourself and not be accountable, right? Or ignore that accountability. And I do think clients can help sort of hold you to that, right? Like you can make agreements with clients about what you're going to do, what you're going to achieve, what the aims and expectations are. And from that perspective, you can get some form of accountability for yourself. So I do think there are good things that sort of come from sort of seeing your clients as your bosses. I just ultimately I don't think they are.
Okay. If I might, from my perspective, I think it's interesting both what Mark and Rachel are saying. See, from my perspective, I work with ADP, as many of you who are regular people in the show will know. So, huge HR payroll organization. And, for my part, I'm managing a kind of large area, geographically speaking, across a number of different countries and a number of different salespeople. So I've got to be very aware of the types of cultures involved when talking to these individuals, as well as the time zones, obviously. And so because of that, I certainly treat my colleagues as my customers. And in that respect, yes, there's a formal hierarchy in most employed jobs, and I don't have the luxury of sort of sacking them because I'm upset with what somebody wants me to do. And that's not to say that I'm not trivializing the fact that you might have an awkward customer. I've spoken to many people who have a customer who are basically very moody or not particularly aligned with what it is that makes them happy and that they want to do. But I think that many of you out there who are essentially self-employed or working for yourselves, working from home, whatever, you are doing so and got into it for very specific reasons. And for me, I think that the beauty of, to Paul's point about my organization being very forward-thinking, is that they recognize, obviously, from a financial perspective, how it makes sense to do this. But also, from I'm a perfect example of from a productivity perspective. I mean, my day is a very long one. Social media, as you pointed out, given that it's the area that I work in, is, extremely varied, and it doesn't just switch off because it's 5 o'clock at night. There's engagement both outside of the organization and within it. But for me, the more interesting thing is that the team of individuals that I work with, so I've got various layers in this conversation in a sense, because yes, I have a direct boss and he has a boss. But I actually feel probably accountability is really the thing that counts for me, because I feel very accountable to my team within sales enablement. I can't drop the ball because I provide a service to that team. And as a unit, we deliver a service to the business, right? So if I'm not doing my bit, then I'm letting the whole team down. And so I feel the, I wouldn't call it pressure, but I certainly feel the responsibility of fulfilling the role that I have for that team. Slightly different angle, but I think the same sort of thing.
No, absolutely. And I actually think that more recently, I've been doing more and more meetings. Don't know about you, Rachel, because I know you work from home and we're in similar lines of business. But more often now than not, I do my meetings online. So whether I use two things, GoToMeeting or Appearing, which Marcus, I think, put me onto. And my clients absolutely love it because neither of us have to sit for half an hour, in cars getting to and from meetings. And at the end of the day, you're not productive when you're in the car. You can't answer emails, you can't do this, that, and the other. And that extra half an hour or hour of commute time that I've bought my clients, they really appreciate. But there is a changing their mindset at the beginning to face-to-face meetings. And that's why I respect your company, Marcus, for allowing you to work from home. I assume they have other home workers as well.
Yeah,
and so long as they have the infrastructure to support it, I think it's fantastic that they have the foresight to allow you to do that.
I'm going to jump out and let Julian jump in if you're out there.
Actually, could I ask Mark and Rachel to jump out? You stay where you are, Marcus.
I'm going to jump.
Yeah, and
nice to meet you, Rachel.
And we'll ask you both to come back in again at the right point. Come on in, Julian. Come on in.
I don't want to take anyone's seat. I was quite happy in the comment section.
I bet you were, you lazy bugger. But anyway,
gazing at my navel.
Excellent. So to those people who don't know, this is Julian Jenkins. He's one of the founders of the Home Workers Network. on a conference call just then, so he had to join us a little bit late. I don't know if you've managed to hear anything that they've been talking about, Julian.
I haven't. I've just, as I've said to my wife, I've just walked in the door.
Okay, well, we've had an interesting discussion about who really is the boss, because I've said that actually my clients, I know who your boss is, Julian. We all know who that is. But my boss, I feel they're my clients. They're the ones I report to. And very interestingly, two people, Mark, you know Mark from Israel, good friend of the shows, and Rachel, who I met in another blab just recently, in a similar line of business to me, both disagreed with me. What are your views on that?
Well, I wish I would have heard what they said now, because I probably would have sided with them. But
well, you would, of course.
Yeah, no, but no, I think, look, I think ultimately you're your own boss.
Yeah.
Because you need to make decisions and do things. It's your business, etc., etc., and your clients are your clients, and you know they will ask you to do things, and you will help them accordingly, depending in terms of the consultancy. As I jokingly said, you know, my real boss is obviously the woman who wears the trousers in this house, and it's firmly not me. So you know,
I don't know. I happen to know it the weekends. That's a different matter. But anyway, we won't go into that.
We won't go into that. But no. But you know, whatever she says, you know, goes really. And as she said to me, you know, she's not bossy. Her ideas are just better than mine. So it's just the way it is. But no, seriously, I think I'm my own boss. Obviously, I've got an obligation to my clients to ensure that what I do is right. So yeah, as I said before, it's for me, a lot of the stuff that I like to do, and it entwines through my consultancy, it's all about collaboration. And I always, even when, you know, I was working within an organization, I always try to have a really flat structure. Obviously there's roles and responsibilities which have accountability, but I always say that I work with people, not for people, or they work for me. It's always done in collaboration. So, you know, and as you know, I always try and get my one-liners in, but the one I always like is, it's amazing what you can achieve when no one gives a shit who gets the credit. So, you know, for me, it's a lot of that, albeit, yeah, I think probably I'm my own boss, and that sometimes is difficult when you're on your own, because, you know, you're having to make decisions by yourself. You're having to, you know, ascertain where you're going to go and how you're going to do things, and all of your time management. As I say, you know, being a business consultant, the product is you and the commodity is time. Yeah. So, you know, it's being able to ensure that, you know, I make myself available and scalable, but also I have that quality time, as we've discussed before, to be able to go to the gym, spend time with my wife, you know, and make those conscious decisions. So I think ultimately I'm my own boss. But as I said, I like quite a flat structure. I'd like a flat structure in my house, but I got no chance.
Fair enough. Thanks for that, Julian. Now, Nazim, thanks for joining us. And I was going to get to your question, which actually neatly leads us on to the next bit in my show notes that Marcus kindly typed out for us here on Google Docs. Another top tech tip that we will probably have to talk about another time. But you mentioned in the comments there about suppliers. So you just fired a client 2 months ago from lack of payment. Got a lawyer involved, got paid, and then off our server. Now, the next thing on my show notes is, are you feeling the pressure from other influences like suppliers or buyers?
No, that's a great question. I have to say that this is related to the web consultancy business that we have going on since 1995. There's only been 2 cases in that whole time frame where this has happened. So I do not feel that pressure, and in fact, I am very diplomatic, and I'm very, you know, it's a small town, Milan. You're dealing with people in the fashion and design industry that everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So before doing something of this level, you know, it comes to a point where it's like, you know, you say to yourself, well, okay, I'm not going to let this walk away, because it's a good chunk of money involved. The services were as contract. The client had some second thoughts about the site regarding, well, you know, they were very indecisive. So at the end of the day, I say, yeah, well, you know, that is your problem. You approved every phase of the project and you went with it. So there's no reason why we do not have to have payment. And it's a fine line. And it goes in line with what you're saying, that my clients, the clients are my boss. At all these years that we've been dealing with different clients, I'm very customer service oriented. And when you have a client that you've had an ongoing relationship, for example, Boffi, Versace also for more than a certain period of time, they get kind of like a preference level that other clients that are new, when I really think everybody should get the same preference. But in that case, then you're kind of like, okay, they are, when they say jump, it's like, okay, the team here is like, how high, and we're ready, and it's online in a relatively fast time in regards to web stuff or app building or stuff of that nature. So I do agree in a certain way that when you're saying that the client is your boss, but there's a very thin line where that can be taken to an abusive, to another direction, where expectations were a little bit different. We're very clear in our contracts and in our estimates and process. But sometimes, that there's a fine line there where it's like, well, wait a second, guys, you are paying us, but that does not mean that you have to abuse the privilege.
No, absolutely. Well, thanks for that, Naseem. Very useful contribution. Now, if anybody in the audience,
Can I just say a public happy birthday, and I hope you had a great.
Thank you, Marcus. It was great. We had a blab last night. It lasted for an hour. Tons of people came in. We were drinking prosecco. It was a lot of fun.
Naseem, can I ask you a question based on what you just said? If you get to that position where you've taken on a job and let's just say that the relationship is gone a little bit too top heavy, like you were talking about, how do you resolve that? How do you overcome that?
That's a great question, because this was a very complicated case in the sense that the company that hired us hired a graphic studio that works with us a lot. So the graphic studio was the end client. So I came in for the technical aspects, working along with the graphic studio to develop this website that also eventually was supposed to have an e-commerce portion to it. And when we had the first presentations with the client, the graphic design, who are obviously, it's a studio that are very close friends of mine, they looked at me and they said, they're not, and I said, this is going to be a difficult client. They're one of these that are like, there's a famous site called Clients from Hell. I saw the potential for them going down that road. So I looked at and I said, do we really want to do this project? But the account involved for the firm that I was working with said, no, we need to do this project. They're connected to other companies, and this is going to be great for the portfolio. And I'm like, let's do it. But I was right down the road, because also the graphic design studio had to go through litigation to get portions of their fees picked up. So that was a specific case, but
that's a difficult conundrum, because it's like being in the casino and you've stuck a lot of money on red, and you're just thinking there's been 15 blacks, and you're thinking, come on, there's got to be a black now, But again, do you stand by your values? Do you stand by, do you try to be strong for maybe for some short-term pain but a long-term gain?
There's another case on the other company I was talking about, the other one, which was the design. It was a company that does furniture related with marble. They played the card of like saying, well, we did the project. There was a little bit of a mishap on the SEO bringing the SEO from the old site to the new site, and it cost us tons of money. So we're not going to pay it. We want a discount on that. And that was a case in point where there was a mistake on our part, not tying in precisely with a group of people that were supposed to be the consultants for that. When you transfer site over, so they did lose, but then they gained it back. But they said that the 3-month period was critical for them. I think it was just an excuse, because looking at the traffic of that site precisely, the numbers were relatively low.
Interesting.
So there's these calls that you have to make, and that's I'm being transparent. That's a call where it was our mistake, and I said, okay, no problem.
I think that's a show in itself.
Yep. I think you might be right there, actually, Julian. Yeah, we should
talking about when you get so far down a road, how do you get out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
we'll add that to our doc on ideas for future shows. But thanks for that, Naseem.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much. A great friend of the show. Naseem is based in Italy, as he said. He's in Milan. and actually proves the true international flavour of this show. I mean, we've had Mark from Israel and Nazim from Israel. Mark from Israel, Nazim from Italy. Just fantastic.
Thanks for
very
inviting
much.
me. Great
Really
show.
appreciate
Love it. Take
Oh,
care.
wow. Wow. Now, listen, we've got Philip Croshaw in the car. Can you see if you can get in, Phil, and see what it's like?
Can I just say, because we're recording this, we don't want to break any laws in the UK, and obviously driving whilst on a device isn't acceptable as long as your hands free.
Absolutely.
And stopped. We can't
And stopped. Yeah, we have to put.
And
that
we've got Patricia from Switzerland as well. From
And
the
Australia.
comments.
Hello, how are you? What part of Switzerland are you from, Patricia? I just lived in Geneva for the past 12 months, so it'd be interesting to see where you're from.
We've got Australia in the house as well.
Australia in the house. Wow, this is incredible.
Very
Literally
nice.
all over the world.
Yeah, and Wales.
And Wales. Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is one of those things where we prove the power of networking, again, but the power of social media. So it's a privilege to be on the show.
Zurich there. Look at that. Fantastic. Right. Okay. Let's move along. So, on my notes here, I've got the employee. Are you employed? Employees have a very different perspective to the self-employed. That's something that I'm sure you can talk about there, Marcus. Accountable to themselves as well as the organisation, able to focus on the task at hand, pressured to produce the goods on their own with little feedback. Actually, that's a challenge I find. It goes on to a reoccurring theme, I think, that we discuss every week. Really, is around discipline.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when you're in an office environment, it's you have people to bounce off, discuss ideas, that type of thing. That's why I love this technology so much, because we can do that in a kind of virtual way.
For sure.
But until this technology came along, or before people understand it, that is an issue. How do you get motivated? How do you discuss ideas? And if you have a bad idea, you've only got yourself to blame, really, when you work from home. Here's Phil.
Here we go. Use the Stig.
Howdy, Phil.
Here he is. Let's see how he gets on. Is he driving? Or is he pulled in?
He won't be driving.
Or has he been pulled over?
He might be in a bad area, judging by that. Although I would say, whilst he's coming in there, I couldn't have written that better myself, by the way, Paul. I think they're very good points. The reality is that you definitely have a different mindset, I think, employed versus self-employed. Hey, Phil. Because, you absolutely need to be self-motivated. You absolutely need to be a self-starter and all of those kind of things. But that's no different from being self-employed in that regard, I think. I think the way the difference kicks in, it's the ability for me still to go into a live office and work amongst my colleagues if I really wanted to. But also having that instant connection with we've like over 10,000 employees. There's no problem with me reaching out to somebody if I have a problem. And I think if you're the opposite of that with a lot of the self-employed colleagues we have here, that may be a problem. You may feel that isolation perhaps even initially. So I think that is definitely a big thing. I'll pass it to you, Phil. What are your thoughts on this?
Hey, Phil. Can you hear?
Hi, guys. I'm only on 4G.
All right.
Only on 4G.
You don't have to show off.
Problem.
It's not great, whatever your 4G is. I'll tell you what, Phil. Go and find a strong 4G signal and come back in if that's all right, mate.
We're catching some nice shots of you. But
I'll see if I can get back in on them. I'll go to the motorway services, see if I can get back in.
Get me a Starbucks while you're there, fella. All right. See you in a minute. So that's Phil. That was Phil Croshaw to our audience, one of the other co-founders of the show. But he was at a client meeting, so he couldn't be here for the full show.
Can we just pick up? I think what was it? Patricia from Switzerland has said that working from home as an employed person increases productivity, not so much meeting tourism.
Meeting tourism?
Yeah. So in other words, you just go around. I don't know. I would envisage that in different ways, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And to your point, Paul, about technology, I mean, as you know, yes, I'm a bit of a tech head, really, hence my impetus to the show.
Just a little bit.
Tips, yeah. But having said that, that has been born of the years of needing to employ all of these different forms of technology to remain productive. You know, I was on the road listening to podcasts for years. You know, and when I wasn't doing that, I was listening to audiobooks at times 3. And when I wasn't doing that, you know, so again, I think we benefit as a collective from some of those technological ideas that I bring to the team because of that. And again, my work colleagues also. I mean, I'm dying to have a conversation about Slack, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen. Just
it might not be quite. See, that's the other thing as well. The culture's got to be ready for it.
Yeah,
it's easy when you work for yourself. Like the other day, we did that. We did the lunch hour networking thing, and you recommended a couple of apps which have actually already changed the way that I work. And you know, but as a home worker, my own boss. Kind of contradicting what I was saying earlier, but be my own boss. If I want to start adopting Slack as a means of communication, then I don't have to ask anyone. I just do it. When you work for a large organization, you've got to get everybody to buy into it, particularly the people at the top. Because if they don't buy into it, you might as well forget it.
You don't know how many times I've been reverted back to Excel. Well, that should say it all. So, you know, but it's a function that works for everybody, right? There's no, you know, a barrier to entry with something like that. So I can understand that. So I get back in my box on those occasions, and express myself in different ways to other audiences.
Okay. Now, you mentioned in the show notes here travel counsellors as an example, as not everyone who is employed by a large company. Tell us about traveller counsellors. I mean, I have a neighbour actually who is a travel counsellor.
I'm probably not the best guy for that. I don't know if you guys have got more experience with this. It was actually a comment that Phil was making at the time. I'm not personally.
Was it Trivial? Was it Phil? Actually, I thought it was you.
Yeah, it was Phil. Yeah, but I think the point he was making is that they're almost, I think, a franchise model where they have a number of remote workers and probably no kind of, you know, central hub of operations, as it were, and yet manage to run a huge business successfully based on just remote workers, but yet employed remote workers, which is very, very novel.
Yeah, and you know, now we have this technology, we can do that. I have a friend of mine who has offices. He works with other people, and they're in different countries. You know, they have GoToMeeting running all day long. So they're almost like they're in the same office all day long. They just have it running in the background and on each other's desks in another window. And if they need to talk to each other, they don't have to pick the phone up or send a text message. They're there.
And that's what I do, because we've got offices here in Wales, and we've got offices in Sydney, Australia, and that's what we do a lot of the time. We just go in.
That's interesting.
We just chuck on Skype generally, and now we're using Appear, which is a great video conference, and I was using it this morning for some clients. So, you know, we just chuck it on and we carry on working, and we talk to each other as if we were sat next to each other. So again, technology is making the world a much smaller place, and a much faster place. Not necessarily all the time a much better place, but certainly if you're working within the environments that we are in the main, or as I do, it's without technology it just wouldn't be possible.
Right, excellent. Now, on the show notes here, we've got provocative questions for the audience. Now, I think Marcus, you put these on there, and if there's anyone there, we've got 10 people in the room. If there's anyone there that wants to come on camera and answer these questions, I promise you we will be friendly and polite. We're not going to beast you.
Can I ask a question on the top of that? Patricia, who's I think is still in the audience, is I think she does reading the profile, does a bit with employment as well. So it's creating confident careerists. So it might be interesting to ask some questions, but also, you know, get her view on the who's your real boss.
Yeah, and I'm happy to jump out if somebody wants to come in. But let's read out these questions. Do you need a boss to stay motivated? That's a good question. And while we're waiting for somebody to fill a seat, Julian, perhaps you might want to answer that.
Do you need a boss to stay motivated? The answer to that question is no, because you should be motivating yourself to be able to do the things that you need to do. So self-motivation, as goes back to my point when you were talking about who's your boss. My real boss is me, really, because I'm the one in charge of my decisions, whether I turn left or right. So the answer to that question is no.
Good. And I for the same reason, I'll give the same answer. Rachel, you're a home worker.
I am.
You're in a similar line of business to me.
Yeah.
Let me ask you that question. And I'll ask you a few other questions while we're at it, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm not prepared now.
Right. Now,
lock the seat with it in it. Can you lock the seat with something in it?
So, do you need a boss to stay motivated? I think we know the answer to this, but go on, answer it.
No. I think that as a home worker and as somebody that works for themselves in a business for themselves, you really need to get to grips with your why. And as long as you are to grips with your why and why you're doing everything you do, you will have all the motivation that you need to complete whatever you need to do.
Okay. Interestingly, I have the same answer, but when I first started working from home in 1999, having come from a very busy office environment, I mean, just to cut a long story short, I was a telesales director to a very large travel organization and had 180 people working for me.
That's mad.
Right. I went from that environment to working from home.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, I sat there thinking, right, because I love the Discovery Channel and I love Sky News. And I'll tell you what, my ideal day of rest is just sticking my feet up on the couch and slobbing out and watching Discovery Channel all day long.
Yeah.
Okay. And to cut another long story short, but one of the people that I watch on Discovery Channel is a guy called Hayden Turner. He's a presenter for Nat Geo Wild, National Geographic. He's now one of my clients, which is really cool.
Wow.
But anyway, I had to get disciplined. Going back to Julian's, what he always talks about discipline. Yeah. I made a conscious effort when I work from home that I need to turn at 9 o'clock. From 8 till 9, it's fine. Have your coffee, watch Sky News, catch up on the news. But then at 9 o'clock, that TV goes off, and it's time to work. And I've got in that habit since 1999. I have another distraction now, which is called Blab. But anyway, you know, discipline is a big part of that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it's funny you should say about the whole 9 to 5 thing. And very coincidentally, Paul, we both come from a very similar corporate career. I used to be a sales manager for a large IT manufacturer.
Right.
And when I started to work from home, exactly the same as you, I was in this mindset of, right, I've got to work from 9 o'clock. That's it. I've got to work from 9 till 5. This is work time now, and yada, yada. And it is really hard working from home. And I've got 2 young children as well. So sometimes in the morning, rushing out the door with the kids and it's been left in turmoil, I can come home. It's easy for me to come home and think, oh, well, I'll just do that washing up, or I'll just do that ironing, or I'll just do that washing. But I think that's one of the great things of working for ourselves, and particularly in the line of work that you and I do, you don't have to work 9 to 5.
And you don't actually always have to be in front of a computer screen, do you?
No. And
some of it you can do remotely.
Yeah. There's a coach that I follow, and one of the things that he says when he's doing motivational speaking is you're self-employed, your skink get used to it, and you can pick which 18 hours of the day you choose to work.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
I think, you know.
Okay, let me move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Rachel, are you project driven?
Oh, I am a typical creative person. Give me a project and I'll get really, really excited about it. And then somebody will show me another project and I go, oh, shiny. So yes, I love a creative project, but it has to be something that interests me. If it's something that doesn't interest me, you've got no chance.
Fair enough. What about you, Julian?
Yeah, projects do motivate me. Depending which project it is, depends whether I'll bid for it. And if I don't want it, I don't bid for it. So yeah, projects are very important, and not just projects, but the people within those projects, because ultimately as a business consultant, if I can't affect change, then I don't bother.
Fair enough. Okay. And Marcus, I would suspect, being someone who works for such a large organization, you probably have several projects running at once, don't you?
I do, but that wasn't my first instinct. My first instinct was to say I don't have a choice, right? Because unlike yourselves, where you're going to choose necessarily the projects you get to work in, I guess, you know, sometimes I'm thinking very kind of I don't know, strategically about new things coming down the pipe. Let's take Blab, for example, but actually that's not really a focus of the business. So I'm currently sort of working on campaigns perhaps for the business, or working with my colleagues in terms of educating them. So it's quite a departure, and I don't always get a choice about how I spend that time. But to the point of projects, I'm absolutely project driven, and that's one of the things I want to talk about during the section of top tech tips.
Okay, fantastic. Next question, which I'll put to all of you. Can you manufacture a boss? I'm not actually sure what you mean by that, Marcus.
Well,
if the truth be told, but anyway.
Do you know what I loved about that? All the questions have been great, and he's made them up. They've been his. The one he didn't understand, he grasped the Marcus up. It was brilliant, wasn't it? United we stand, divided we leg it. Go for it.
All I was really getting at with that was simply that some people really, really need an accountability partner, and that means that they just have to have somebody to check things off against all the time. And I think you're either the kind of person who stands by your own decisions, or you're somebody who always needs to check with somebody else. So, do you end up walking into your missus or your co-worker?
I do understand the question now. You've said that. And I manufactured my own boss earlier on in this show, and my manufactured boss are my clients, as I said earlier. What about you, Rachel?
I work with a mastermind group, so I've got a coach, and there's a load of other business owners within that mastermind group, and I work with them, and they are my accountability. So if I've got something that typically needs to be done, or I'm unsure about something, I'll knock it around the mastermind group. Marcus,
actually, he and I had a kind of 2-hour impromptu appearing session the other night, and he talked to me about this concept of mastermind groups, and I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah.
Wow.
And actually, I want to be a part of one now, Marcus.
You are a part of one.
Yeah. Well, this is like that. This is exactly. It's collaboration. It's talking to other business owners and stuff. It's awesome.
Would you come in on it, Rachel?
Pardon?
If we set up actually, Marcus has set a Slack group up, a mastermind thing, and which we might do through Appearing. Would you join us on that?
Oh, yeah. Love that.
Here's the thing, Paul. Here's the thing that Rachel knows that you perhaps don't at this point, though, is that it's not a flippant thing. You got to go, Julian.
Yeah.
No, Patricia.
Oh, right. I'll see you, Patricia. It's not a flippant thing to take part in a mastermind group, and there are responsibilities that go with that, as I'm sure Rachel will appreciate. We'll talk about, maybe we can run a show on it, actually. I think it's a very wise thing to do, to run a show based on that principle.
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah, that's another idea for a show.
I think Rachel should absolutely come in on that show and tell us about her experiences with regards to her group.
Oh, there's no way I'd still be in business if it weren't for the fact that I'd got a coach and a mastermind group. No way.
Really? Wow.
You and I are going to talk offline, Rachel. I'm really interested. I'm really interested to hear about your experiences because, frankly, for me, I'm always seeking external influences from people in business, really just to increase my skills, my productivity, and again, at the moment, take that back into the business and work more in a structured way. But I'm always interested how you manage to make that work.
And I think your next question, Marcus, actually is around the same lines. Do you need an accountability partner because you don't trust yourself? I'm not sure it's because you don't trust yourself, but sometimes, I was going back to my earlier point, it's good to be able to bounce off people, and that's why I suggest that these mastermind groups are such a great idea.
Well, two things on that. I told you right at the very beginning that employed and self-employed people think very differently. Now, for me, I believe I'm very lucky because I think I work essentially as almost like a person who is self-employed in my own mind. And I've often said, my employers are my biggest client, really. I make a huge effort to make sure that I'm satisfying that client. But I think for the average employee who is thrust into a remote or self-working, home worker role, that's not always the case, and they do get distracted by squirrels and televisions and all that other nonsense, and that may be very, very difficult for those people. And likewise, I think that could be said for people who are at the beginning of their careers in a small business, who again have maybe been working in an organization, have come out and then find, hang on a minute, what do I now do at this time of day? I've had 10 years to get used to forming the right ways to work for me. But for Rachel, for example, or for yourself, Paul, when you first started your business, you may have been distracted and not been able to find that focus.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, look, Rachel, thanks so much for jumping in again.
Thanks
Wonderful,
for letting me.
wonderful contributor, and we hope that you will join us on future shows
I
because
will be speaking
I'm glad I found you.
yeah, likewise, and I would love you to take part in one of these mastermind groups.
I think again, and where it would be great with talking with Rachel is that Rob Zabrowski has said that he thinks that we should run a show on mastermind groups and coaching and mentoring and those sort of things. So maybe timing is of the essence. Time is now.
I'm on
maybe the next show we should talk about, mastermind groups, mentoring, coaching for people who do feel as if they're
Marcus, have you got that document open?
Way ahead of you, buddy.
Okay, fella, I thought you might. Okay, Rachel, thanks so much.
Thanks, Rachel.
We're going to go on to our next segment now. Stick around, though, Rachel, because you never know. You might be able to contribute to the next segment. So thanks a lot.
I'll go and have my pudding now. See you later.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, the next segment is actually my favourite segment, and that is Top Tech Tips.
I thought we were going to start a drinking section.
Top Tech Tips, and this is Marcus's normal segment. We did actually, and I mentioned it earlier, an impromptu sort of lunch hour networking session the other day, and Marcus came up with two absolute belters. One was Pocket, and the other one was, which I forget the name of, but I've used it every day since. What was it?
Voice Dream.
Voice Dream.
Yeah.
And
together.
Yeah, and as somebody who has to read a lot of documents in my role as a counsellor at our local authority, that Voice Dream is a dream, quite frankly, because I can just listen to the documents in the background rather than read them, and it's just absolutely fantastic. So I have to thank you, Marcus, for pointing those in my direction, because you really have changed the way my workflow is. So thanks for that.
My pleasure.
Now, today you're going to be talking about Sunrise Calendar, so take it away.
Well, thank you for keeping me keeping the reins on me, because I do tend to fire away. And as I've said to many of you in the audience who have become used to me, all or most of the technology that I use is very interweaved, and that's why sometimes one flows into the next. However, you can see me glancing over at my clock quite a lot, because I've got a very structured day today, and that structure comes from, amongst many other productivity tools, which I won't talk about quite yet, Sunrise. Now, the Sunrise Calendar is, for me, hands down, one of the best things that I've discovered this year. Now, why? Why the hell should you care about this? First and foremost, Sunrise operates across, so I'll post, in fact, one of you guys, if you wouldn't mind posting that link there in the show notes. Sunrise works across a number of different platforms, and what that means is that you can bring in as many different types of inputs as you like, and they will all show up in your single calendar entry. Now, I use Google Calendars in my life, in my personal life. My wife knows very well that if it's not in my diary, it doesn't exist. So there's none of this kind of, I said I was right. Now, what's cool about that is that there sometimes are things happening at work, which I will also forward to that diary, just so that in my walking world, I have a very clear and crisp view of absolutely everything that's happening. Now, Sunrise Calendar works in conjunction with a large number of other productivity tools in my life, which again I won't go into, but I will mention, such as Evernote, iOS reminders, so pushing your phone as I do regularly, remind me at such and such a time to do such and such a thing, which of course means it speaks to iCloud, and again my go-to productivity tool, Trello. And what I love about that is whatever I put into those different spheres of influence in my life as a reminder for something, that all shows up on the date and time that I've specified within my Sunrise Calendar. And I wager there isn't any other calendar system that I've certainly used that really does that in a consistent and sort of solid way. So I really, really love that. They've also got, final thing about this, a really cool facility. Number one, they operate across, of course, the iPhone, in my case, because I use iPhone, so across all iOS, and you've got a desktop version of that as well. It's free, which we all love, and it's just a really, really great app. If I wanted to meet Paul, for example, for some reason, I can actually say, okay, I've got these 6 slots across the week that I am able to meet you, Paul. Choose one, and that one opportunity will show up once he has said, okay, this is the one for me, and it will If I've put something else in the place of one of those that I've selected previously as being a sort of a moment that I could have had a meeting, but that's now taken up, that will disappear from Paul's view. So that sort of clever integration in the background is really awesome. So my hat's off to Sunrise Calendar. That's the top tip of the week from me.
Yeah, Sunrise is brilliant. I used it a lot and then stopped using it for some reason, but based on our pre-show meeting the other day, I installed it again and I've started using it again. And I too like that functionality where you can send your clients or people that you want to have a meeting with or may want to have a meeting with you different areas of availability, which is very powerful, I think. Very powerful. So thanks for that, Marcus. What about you, Julian?
I've never used it. Well, I'd say I never used it. I try things, and sometimes if I don't get on with them, I throw them in the bin. And these were one of the ones I threw in the bin. But I've just looked at it now, and they've massively increased the functionality by the looks of it and the integration. So I can now integrate.
Absolutely.
I can integrate everything across it. So it's something I would say that I will be using from now on. Yeah. Can I just say one thing that I'd like to thank everybody for coming into the room. And I know we normally do this at the end, but there's not a great deal of people actually physically on the Blab platform currently as we speak at the moment. But what I would say is we are the number one Blab as we speak.
Fantastic.
So I'd like to thank everybody that's come in and everyone's taken part and everybody has done everything, because we are currently the number one Blab on Blab.
That's great. That is great news. And just to your point about functionality and integrations, I've noticed quite a lot of the best apps out there. So you take Slack as an example. That integrates seamlessly with other other platforms, like, for instance, just as an example, Dropbox or Google Drive or Appear In. You can type Appear. What is it you type? The little
Appear In / and then your whatever,
and you're straight in there. And I think that the clever apps out there are making really good use of the APIs. For those of you that don't know what an API is, it's basically a plugin that a developer allows other developers access to the sort of back end of the program and allows it to integrate with other apps. And it is just fantastic how they've done that. And Sunrise is a great example of that, I think, how they've integrated Evernote and other types of, which I know you're also a big fan of, aren't you, Marcus?
Huge, yeah.
Okay.
Difficult to function without it, frankly.
Okay, now we've got a bit of time. I restricted you to one top tech tip, Marcus, but there's a couple more on there. Actually, Evernote is your next one. Have you got time to talk about that, or did you want to talk about, say, iOS reminders? I quite like their location geofencing facility on that.
Yeah, okay. Well, you've just covered that pretty quickly. It can do location geofencing, pretty low-tech stuff, unless you've never used it before. So saying pick up the dry cleaning when I'm on the Mansfield Road is awesome, because if you're going down the street and you're just about to pass, as soon as you go into a geographic area that you've outlined by postcode, boom, your phone reminds you. I mean, I've been on the motorway and said, don't forget to grab an Indian on the way in, and not a physical Indian, of course, but some food on the way in, because typically you'll drive past and then oh damn it, and you've got to go back and order something.
Julian can't drive past an Indian; he don't need that functionality.
So that's been really, really cool. But actually, I would, given the time, actually like to introduce the concept of Evernote for those who haven't used it before we introduce John here, and that's really just, it's a digital brain, an off-site digital brain. And one of the use cases I think that I wanted to highlight for you, Paul, because we talked about this the other day. So you can put text, sound, pictures, whatever into this solution. Okay, it operates as usual for me on desktop or any mobile device, tablet or otherwise. And what makes it, for me, awesome is that you can have unlimited notebooks and unlimited notes. Now, I know there's somebody out there, some geek who's going to argue with the word unlimited, but for the purposes of most of us, it's unlimited. Yes, there are some minor limits. But for me, I have a number of workbooks across all of the different pigeonholes of my life. But the one that I really love to look back at is the one with my children, because everything they've ever done at school, ever, is stored within Evernote. So all of those beautiful pictures that they've drawn are no longer just thrown away or in the attic or something. I can pull them up and show my kids their development. I've had situations where I've maybe been reading to them a story and I've just put my phone on the side and recorded the session, so we get all of the giggles and all the rest of it. And boom, just play that someday when you're having a sort of down moment. And I've got to tell you, for that alone, it's worth every penny of its subscription cost. So if you haven't explored Evernote out there, guys, for me, I strongly recommend you go give it another look. I think it's going to be a very important tool.
Brilliant. Thank you. Hello, John. Welcome.
Hello. Can you hear?
Perfectly.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Yeah.
Oh, very good. As I said in my little note there, brand new to Blab 15 minutes ago.
No way.
And this is the first time. So,
where are you in the world, John?
Adelaide, South Australia.
Awesome.
There you go. Another example of the true international flavour of this show. So thanks for joining us, John.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, go on, Julian. Go ahead.
No, I saw John's comments. He says, I'm brand new to Blab, created an account 15 minutes ago and selected yours from on air. Great info, and I will follow. So I then said, it's all about the experience, and we'd love for John to lose his Blab virginity with us and and jump on a seat and say hello. So welcome to Blab, John, and welcome to the Homeworkers Network. I'm sure you're as addicted as we are.
And just so you're aware, John, this is a weekly show, and I've just put in the comments there the Homeworkers Network Facebook page, like that, and then you can find out about future shows, which we do roughly about the same time every week. So thanks for joining us. What I want to do is just because we're getting very close to the end here, I just want to talk about your top tech tip for the week, Julian, and then I'll go on to mine.
My top tech tip for the week is a little bit strange. But
you are a bit strange. So
it's called Babylon.
Okay.
Babylon.
Babylon. Babylon. And it is a virtual doctor in your pocket. Now, unfortunately, it only works for those people who are in the UK. But it basically is everyone's personal health service via an app. It costs you £5 per month for one user. And if you're feeling ill or whatever you want to do, you can press a button and it'll book a consultation with a doctor or with a specialist, and they will refer you. They can access all of your records. And if you're not feeling well, then you can just press the button, speak to the doctor. You don't have to wait. You don't have to go to your surgery. They can send a prescription directly to the chemist. They can send blood analysis, anything like that, straight to the hospital. So you can do everything from your phone, and you don't have to wait for your doctor 6 weeks till you're well again and then go and speak to him.
Amazing. For a £5 a month.
For £5 per month, yeah.
I'll tell you what, my brother, who's a hypochondriac, that is right up his alley. Yeah. He would love that.
But it's a great thing. And my daughter had a sore throat, and I pressed the button and the doctor came up, and he's now prescribed her antibiotics, and we can go and pick them up from the chemist this afternoon.
Wait a minute, let me nail this down a little bit before we finish up. So is this linked to the NHS in any way? Do you have to have a private healthcare plan or anything like that?
You just pay the £5 per month, but they have you can grant access to your records for them, and they can then send the prescription and everything to the chemist. They'll fax the prescription or email the prescription to the chemist. We go to the chemist, pick up the antibiotics. My daughter gets a throat seen too.
Amazing. I've got to get that. That is incredible.
Babylon.
Thanks for that, Julie. Absolutely brilliant. Now, my top tech tip is I want to give people an alternative to iOS reminders, which Marcus spoke briefly about earlier, because the problem with geofencing, for those that don't know what geofencing means, is that you can set a reminder based on your location in iOS reminders. So, for instance, you can set up home as a location, and you can set a reminder that when you get home to put the oven on, as an example. So that, and it does it on your location. So when you arrive home from work, you get an iOS reminder on your phone, push notification to tell you to put the oven on. Now, that's great, but there is a problem with it. And that is that I found, because I have a daughter who doesn't see me during the day, and she gets very excited that when I walk through the door, and we'll sit there for 5 or 10 minutes playing or talking about what her day's been like at school or whatever, I get distracted. So I've had the reminder, but then my daughter distracts me or something distracts me, and then I forget what I was meant to do, that the reminder was reminding me to do. and kind of defeats the purpose of it. So my top tech tip is based on that, and it's an app called Checkmark. And it's a brilliant app. It's just a reminder app, much the same as iOS reminders. But one of its great features on location-based reminders is that you can snooze. You can snooze the reminder. We're just letting somebody in here. Just keep an eye on that, Julian. Hello. So you can use the snooze feature to go off 10 minutes after you arrive home. So you can say on your reminder, remind me 10 minutes after I arrive home. Now, you can't do that on iOS reminders. So it just takes location-based reminders to the next level. It's a very cheap app. Costs about 69p. I use it every single day.
And what's it called?
It's called Checkmark.
You paid. It cost me a fortune on this bloody.
Absolutely brilliant. And to those people who just came in then, I'm sorry I booted you, but obviously you were using it to show your friends what Blab's all about, which is absolutely fine, but we're recording a show here. But we'll be doing an after show in a minute, and you'll be more than welcome to join us. So that's my top tech tip for the week. We have a show scheduled for next week, Marcus?
We do. We now do. And we're going to have a quick look at mastermind groups, and we'll figure out what top tech tip suits that environment. So thank you for that, Julian, and also for, I think it was Rachel that recommended it.
I know we're going to have here now, but just before we finish, I'm sure we could be 1 minute late, but
yeah,
I really like it when we have audience participation. Again, we're all in this together. We're just facilitators. We're facilitating the ability for people to come and talk and share best practice and knowledge and everything else as part of our why statement. And I really love it when the show gets driven from the audience and from the people within it, because for me, the key to this going to be successful and going forward and it's building is that it's all about all of us creating things that we need to know and about, and us answering those topics. So thank you, Rachel. It's brilliant, and we should have a great show next week.
Thank you for all those followers out there who have, followed us and increased our engagement in social media terms as well. I appreciate that.
And can I just remind people to go on our Facebook page? Would you put a link in there, Marcus, so the Facebook page? I mean, if you're not already liking our Facebook page, make sure you do that. Also, we have a podcast channel, so a recording will be made of this available on our podcast channel. Just do a search for Home Workers Network on either iOS podcast app, Stitcher, or Overcast. And also we have a YouTube channel, and we'll be embedding the video of this on there later. So, Julian, did you want to just add something before we wrap up?
No, just again, thank you very much for making us the #1 Blab show between 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock on Thursday lunchtimes.
Yeah, we've had 67 people on this show, which is absolutely fantastic.
I don't mind missing my lunch for this moment, so that's it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us, and stick around for the after show.
Thank you, guys.